Hey friends, welcome back to the GODSPEED Garage. In this episode, the Dodge Podge is back. Well, sort of. So I got an S10 from a friend of mine a while back just to use for parts. Mainly, I'm going to rip out the rear end. That's going to go in my next project. And I finally got around to tearing the S10 apart because the plan is to use this chassis for the 29 Dodge sedan body. The S10 was a four-wheel drive long bed. So the chassis is quite a bit longer than I need. And I'm still trying to figure out the direction I want to go with it. Obviously right now it's sitting way too high. I'm planning on Z-ing the frame both over the rear axle and doing a Z notch for the engine compartment so that the body will be as low as I can go. I'm not sure I want to do airbags quite yet, but I do want it to have a good stance. And that's going to be a lot of frame modifications, which is okay. It sounds like a lot of fun to me actually, because I've never actually done frame modifications and I love learning. So because there's so much room in front of the firewall, I'm going to end up moving the motor back. So obviously it'll be right in front of the firewall, and the radiator will be about where the front wheels are. So it'll still look sort of stock. I'm debating, however, and you guys can help me figure this out too. I kind of like using the A-arms, but I sort of want to do a straight axle, and I'm not sure what direction I want to go with that. I toyed with the idea of keeping it a four-wheel drive and having a four-wheel drive hot rod, but I don't know. That sort of sounds cool because there's not a whole lot of them out there. I haven't seen a whole lot anyway, but it's sort of, I kind of like the old traditional hot rod with the straight axle and all of that. Now the rear section, right now it's leaf springs, and that's why it's sitting on top of the frame, because I need to hack the back of the frame off, but I can't do that because there's leaf springs on there. So I'm going to end up doing a 4-link back there. But before I do the 4-link, I actually have to get the rear axle that's going to be dedicated to the Dodge Podge, because when you do the 4-link you actually have to weld parts to the rear diff, and I don't want to do that until I actually get the rear diff that I'm actually going to use. Then I can hack off the rear end, Z the frame, and the body will sit back down over it. Now I was able to use the same mount that I had when it was on the car dolly, and I basically just drilled holes in the frame for it to sit on there. I was able to kind of line up the middle of the wheel well with where the tire sits. I used a plumb bob for that. So the body is about in the right spot. When I Z the frame, however, it depends. I have to do some more measuring and stuff, but I think it's going to shorten about 3 inches or so from the front, and I think it'll be okay. I think I'll still have enough frame rails for that. Obviously, you can see as the body turns in, right in front of the passenger door, behind the front doors, is where it starts to pinch in. I'm going to have to pinch in the frame right about there to line up for the front. Now, for the front of the frame, because it's a four-wheel drive, it's got these torsion bar. I would kind of like to keep it, but the problem is it's going to be right in line with where I need to build the new frame. I have to cut this section out so I can make it the right width for the Dodge body. So I'm going to pinch it in back here and then basically have to build new frame rails coming up to the firewall, Z down to where the frame is underneath the Dodge body. So I'll probably have to end up getting rid of the torsion bars and all of that stuff. You know, there are no instructions and no plans for this, so it sort of is make it up as you go along and figure out what's going to work kind of one step at a time sort of a thing. So for right now, I just made these temporary mounts to hold the front of the Dodge body to the frame. There's one over there and one over here. And if you remember, this whole passenger side was all pushed in along the bottom. And that was kind of a pain to work out, and I'm still not 100% satisfied with it, but it's good enough for now, kind of a thing, to where I can actually straighten it out and get the actual measurements and do everything the way I want it to be when I actually get around to start building this car, like for reals. In here on the inside, the firewall was actually all bent up, but you can see I got this brace going across the bottom here to help push this side more this way, more than anything, so to keep it, you know, the distance that I wanted it. And this top piece up here, I bolted that in there, so I'm going to try to straighten the bottom part of that firewall out a little bit more and try to bolt it to that brace going across there, so hopefully it'll keep the firewall straight. And then for the floor, I'm just doing some angle iron right here, as you can see, and I'll do the same thing on the driver's side over there. So that angle iron, I'll put braces going across, so when I make my sort of temporary floor, it'll have something to sit on. And then I can put the seat in there, and I have to figure out where the seat's going to go. I'm going to build bracing for obviously the brakes and the steering column, because those things you don't want to mess with. Those have to be super secure, otherwise you're going to be in a world of hurt if those two systems fail, or even one of those two systems.
Hands shoving their palms to the ceiling makes me sick. They're so quick to forget when they're leaving.
So the floor section is coming together pretty nice. You can see I got this front section fitted in there pretty well. It's not perfect, but again, this is just a temporary floor until I can get around to actually making the real floor. Here's the rear section. Now this rear section, as you can see, these studs poking up, those are for the seat. And I kind of test fitted the seat already to make sure it's sort of where I want it to be. I decided to put the seat kind of temporarily in there for now so that I can figure out where I want to put my pedals and the steering column and all that. I am going to have to drill a hole through the firewall for the steering column, and like I said, I'm going to build bracing and everything in there and extra plates in there for the brake booster and all of that, but I think it's going to work out okay. I'm going to build another section to fill in this area right here that I'm going to bead roll for strength and all of that sort of stuff, so it'll sit in there. And then later on, when I get to actually building the floor, when I do the frame and set this thing down on the frame, then I'll do some boxing and stuff underneath all this bracing. But for now, this 1/4 inch plate will be good enough just to kind of hold it in there for now. And speaking of the seat, here it is. Now, this is the seat out of the S10, and I measured the width of it, and it's pretty close to the width of the Dodge, the inside of the Dodge, at least the back part of the Dodge before it starts to bend in. So the back part of it will probably be okay to leave that part alone. I might need to take some stuffing out of the top up here, but the bottom section here will not work in the Dodge as it is. You can see that hump on the side there, that's sort of hip. The hips are too wide on this thing. So what I got to do is somehow cut that section off, because right now it won't fit between the doors from this front part here anyway. So after taking all the hog rings off and getting the seat cushion and the cover off, I actually think I have a better solution. So these hips right here are just welded on there, and I don't want to change where that hole is right there for the seat bracket to screw into, because that's super important. So what I think I'm gonna do is just cut this weld right here, and then maybe cut it down here where it starts to bend, and move this piece in, and sort of bend it, cut it, bend it, cut it, and make it work, because it just needs to be basically in line with this bottom part right here. So that just needs to go straight, and maybe even pinched in a little bit. So that needs to connect up to here. So that's the plan for right now anyway. All right, so I got it all pinched in. I decided just to kind of do a bunch of pie cuts and pinch it in to the front part of the frame here. And it turned out pretty good. I didn't bother grinding down my welds, but you can see how many times I pie cutted it and slapped some paint on there just to kind of keep it from rusting. But I think it's going to work out fine. It is a bit more narrow on the front, but that's okay because it'll actually fit with the pinch in of the car. So I think it's going to work out great. So now the next step is to cut down the foam to match the frame, and then cut up the cover and try to sew it all together, or as I like to call it, fabric welding. Here it is. The seat is in the Hodge Podge. This is a momentous event for this thing. It actually kind of feels like a car now. Man, this is awesome. I can totally see it. In fact, yeah, I can see it. Boom, boom, boom. Yeah, this is going to be good. Man, I'm so motivated to work on this thing now. This is awesome. I guess I should probably fix the door hinges and the door latches so I can get the doors back on. Probably need doors. Although Jeeps don't have doors in the summertime. Meh. Probably should finish the doors. And do brake pedal and a gas pedal. And finish my steering column.